Hello everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Thomas from Tom's CRM Talk, and today I want to talk about Salesforce Objects. There are a couple of objects in Salesforce rather than just standard or custom objects, so I will talk a little bit about the different object types, even objects which are not objects, but we call them objects. And no worries if you don't get everything right here. I will create an extra video for every object type we cover here today with all the information. So today it's just really to give you an introduction to the objects, provide you some very basic information already. So when you start talking about objects, you already have some kind of idea. And just subscribe to this channel. There will be coming some more videos or specific videos about every object type, how you create them, how you can use them, use cases, considerations, all these kind of things. All right. Okay, so let's start with it and let's go into my PowerPoint. Here you go. And so what are Salesforce objects? So a Salesforce object is a database table, pretty much, right? And it's just not there to store records. It also stores other key components like fields, relationships, page layouts, record types, APIs, all these kind of things, right? And when you start talking about objects with an admin, developer, architect, or consultant, 90% of all the time I believe you're talking about standard objects, custom objects, external objects, and big objects, okay? There are more objects, we cover them later in this video, but they are very, very specific, okay? Let's for now just focus on these 4 object types, all right? So standard custom objects. Standard objects, I believe it's very obvious what it is. And there are currently already 1,467 standard objects available in Salesforce. Of course, depending on the license you have and the version you're running on your organization. But this is what we already have, at least in Salesforce, and that was August 2024. It probably right now even more. And with every Salesforce feature, they're usually also coming some new objects to cover and ensure the features are working properly. So that's also a good call out already here for some best practice. Before you start creating custom objects, always double check if there might be already a standard object available for your use case, okay? But just you already know. So no matter if you're working with a custom object or a standard object, and it might also vary slightly depending on the field type or on your org limits, you usually can create 500 custom fields on that object. Okay, that's usually the limit. Custom objects always end up with __C. So, for example, if you're in your object manager in Salesforce, here you go. And you're going here through the API names. I can see here account officially standard object, the account object. It also telling me here standard type. It's a type. It's a standard object. And here we can see, for example, application __C, and it's a custom object. So this is, for example, how you recognize if something is a standard or a custom object when you're working with the object manager. Okay. All right. And yeah, you can have up to 40 lookup relationships, and 2 of them can be master detail relationships. So that's very important to consider when you start working on your Salesforce schema. I covered in a previous video, so that you have this limitation when you're setting this up. Important also to know on standard and custom objects is large data volume. You probably want to avoid huge, and we're talking about huge, large data volume, and because it just can impact your performance, right? For example, end users starting creating list views or starting to create reports and dashboards and then complain to you about timeouts, limits, poor performance. So that's definitely something. And when you will start working with these objects, you can use selective filters, skinny tables, custom indexes, and of course, thinking about an archival strategy. to ensure the performance is not getting poor and does not impact reports, list views. SOQL queries, also a pain point for developers, or bulk processing, things like batch APIs. Okay. Then we have the external objects, and that's actually live access to an external system data, for example, to SAP. Okay. So the data does not get stored in Salesforce. So that's good to know. So no additional storage cost. And it's kind of live data access via Salesforce Connect. So pretty much you create an external object, you connect it to an external system, maybe to SAP. And then if someone is clicking on it, for example, on an account record, and he wants to see some information which are hosted in SAP, he can see it on the related lists, live data from SAP, for example. External objects are kind of cool because you can also create a UI for them, same as for standard and custom objects. It's very user-friendly. But you can just create indirect lookups to standard or custom objects, but no master detail relationship supported. So you have to keep that in mind, right? And it comes up with some more limitations. So keep in mind the data access speed. So depending on the internet connection and also on the speed of the external system, the live data access can be very quick or very slow. So just keep in mind, and you don't have field CRUD support, which means like it does not support the full create, read, delete record thing, and no support of Apex triggers, and only limited within flows. So you can just use external objects in flows read only. Global search does not index external object data. That's also important to know, right? So these are probably the four main things you have to keep in mind when talking or working with external objects. For now, it's the basics. I will create definitely detailed videos about every object here. Okay? So no worries. Then we're coming to the big objects. And that's a very interesting object. And it's there to store high volume data. And when talking about high volume, we don't talk about 1,000 records or million records. We're talking about billions of records. Okay, that's the thing for big objects. And the typical use case are audit trails, archiving data like past invoices from some of your objects, integration logs, these kind of things. Just data where you have maybe every day thousands of new records, and you don't need to have real-time access all the time to this data, but it needs to be there for some specific reason. So then you can use big objects. The data gets stored in separate data store. It's important to know. And when you're creating a big object, it requires a defined index. That's mandatory. Okay. And it comes with some limitations. So it does not have any UI. Like your end users cannot go to a big object and click on it and go through the records in there. Okay. And it also supports 100 fields per object. So let's say you have a custom object created for your invoices and it has, for any reason, 300 fields. And you want to use big objects to cover the amount of invoices. You have to think about like, okay, what are the most important fields of these 300 I definitely need to store in a big object. And yeah, just keep in mind, it's just 100 fields per object. Triggers flows are not possible with big objects, and it does not support DML operations like inserts, updates, deletes of records. And it does not, it's supported by global search. So keep that in mind when talking about big objects. It's really there to store massive of data and make it available, for example, in some external reporting systems. But it's not available like other data in Salesforce, right? Not by UI, not by triggers, not by flows. That's very limited, but it's a great object. Here just an overview, and I hope you can read it, about the basic information and differences between standard custom objects, big objects, and external objects. And I will not now go through every line, but for example, real-time access. Standard objects, yes, of course, you have real-time access to it. Big objects, no, just asynchronous access. And external objects, yes, you have access to real-time data. For example, SOCL support or SOCL support on custom objects, standard objects, yes. Big objects, yeah, SOCL, just limited for your indexed fields, and but no SOCL support. And external objects, both is also very limited or partial to indexed fields only, okay? Reports, dashboards, very interesting thing. Standard objects, custom support, and custom objects, yes, of course, full support. No worries, right? Big objects, no, don't get supported in reports, dashboards. That's something you need to keep in mind here. And external objects are limited supported just by some summary tabular report only, but you cannot create like fancy dashboards or something like that with it, okay? Or another thing like accessible via UI, fully supported standard object, custom object, yes, of course. Big objects, no, it's not editable or viewable in a UI, not possible. And external objects, yes, limited layout features, yes, but it's there, which is cool. Or you can see here also deployment with metadata, standard object, custom objects, yes, that's possible. Big objects, yes, that's possible. External objects, yes, via external data source configuration. If you want to have this overview or one of my slides, just feel free to add a comment or send me an email, and I'm happy to share these slides with you so you have them for your own reference, okay? But these are actually the main or basic differences between standard custom objects, big objects, and external objects. So we covered that. There will be coming an extra video for every of these objects, but there are even more objects out there, and let's just talk quickly about it, okay? We have additional objects in Salesforce rather than these, and these are mostly interesting, I would say, for architects, developers. One is a change data capture object, and it tracking system generated changes like create, update, deletes on objects records. And there are, for example, standard objects like account change event, but you can also create, of course, custom objects. Then we have a custom metadata type object. It's really defined for application metadata, to define application metadata, and we have custom settings object. And also here, no worries right now about the details. Okay, we're getting into this with extra videos, okay? But just to let you know, these kind of objects are really more important for developers and architects, maybe even for admins sometimes. But yeah, no worries for now. You heard about it. You know these objects exist in Salesforce. More to come in upcoming videos, okay? Last but not least, I want to touch or follow up on some not traditional or actually even no objects in Salesforce. And we have two types here. We have ES objects and we have platform events. And so what is an S object? S objects stand for Salesforce Object, and it's something developers working with it when writing Apex code pretty much all the time. An S object is a record in Salesforce. That's an S object, and it's tied to an S object type. So for example, an account record with the name Tom CRM Talk is an S object, and it's tied to the S object type account. And if you write that down in Apex code, that could be account initiated as ACCC. And now we create here a new account, and the name is Tom CRM Talk. So we're creating here actually a new S object. that's tied to the as object type account. Also here, extra video for now, no worries. But you know now, if someone is talking to you about as objects, or you read it somewhere in some documentary or somewhere out there in the internet like as object, and you know what is an as object? It's a Salesforce object, it's a record. Okay? Okay. Then we have platform events, and I list them here because there are actually no objects, but they're modeled very similar to an as object. And also here, no worries for now. Also, I will cover platform events and guide you through this. So for now, you just know they are there. You can work with platform events a little bit or similar like with an object. But it's really more for event-driven architecture. Okay. But for now, just, you know it. You heard about it as objects, platform events. Cool. So what else? Of course, I want to share with you some best practices when working with objects in Salesforce. And one is, and I already covered that in one of my previous videos about Salesforce schema. Design your data model, your schema carefully. That's really like, for me, the number one tip when starting working or setting up a new Salesforce organization. Design your data model schema carefully. Don't rush and don't just create custom objects just because you can create custom objects or you know how to do it. If there's already a standard object available to do the job, okay? And there's also, I will put into this video description a link to a Salesforce help page where you can see all standard objects listed with all information you need, okay? Avoid over-customization. That's actually what I already just said. Use standard objects when they fit the use case. Over-customization, yes. You could now argue, yeah, but Thomas, you know, Salesforce is out there to could be customized and to fit customers' needs. Yes. But over-customization is also a bad thing. It can impact performance and it can end up in error messages. With every Salesforce release which is upcoming, you have to ensure that all the customization you did to the Salesforce organization is still working, does not get impacted negatively. So working with Salesforce out of the box functionality and standard objects as much as possible is always actually the way to go when starting working or using Salesforce, okay? Then, of course, use index and query optimizations for your objects with lots of records. I would recommend to do it always. No worries if you just store, I don't know, 5,000 records in an object or 500,000 records, to be honest. Regularly audit field usage to prevent clutter and technical debt. Yes. I will create a video about a tool which you can use to audit field usage, which is pretty cool in an upcoming video. But yeah, that's also something you should do. Always double check how the field usage in your Salesforce organization, okay? And then last but not least, yes, of course, consider custom. Yeah, that's now very specific. I would say best practice for me, consider custom metadata types or custom settings for static configuration data instead of custom objects. That's very, very specific because that just touches one of the objects we just covered previously, where I told you like, yeah, no worries for now, it's more for developers and architects. We will get here into this more in details in an upcoming video, but just to already let you know, even when you start, there's no standard object available and you're thinking about creating a custom object, custom metadata type object or custom setting object could be also a way to go, but you just heard about it. No worries for now. Okay. All right. And I believe that would be it. Yeah, that's the link I will put now into the description then for you. Okay. I hope that video helped you. I hope you understand what kind of objects we have in Salesforce. Rather than just standard objects, custom objects, you also have big objects, external objects, you have as objects, you have custom metadata type objects. So there's a lot of going on objects in Salesforce, and now you have at least a brief overview about the existing objects and even a little bit more basic details about the most common ones, okay? If you like that video, please give it a thumbs up, somewhere down here. If you like that channel, of course, feel free to subscribe to this channel. This channel is completely free. It's demonetized. I'm just doing this here for fun, and I hope that my knowledge and work here will help you on your journey with Salesforce. And yeah, that's already it. So watch out for some upcoming videos, detailed videos about all the objects I just covered today. And I see you next time. Thank you and goodbye.